Caught my wife and brother together while I was away for work, now she's pregnant and everyone wants me to pay for it. Hey everyone. Honestly, I'm not sure why I'm jotting this down. Maybe I just need to get it off my chest. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and the main folks in this tale are me, my wife, we'll call her Sarah, she's 30, my younger brother Tom, who's 27, and my parents. Sarah and I have been hitched for 5 years. We lived in a pretty nice house I bought before we got married, 3 bedrooms and a cozy little yard. Now, growing up, it always felt like Tom was the golden child. My parents doted on him, always there to lend a hand. He was kind of a wild one. Meanwhile, I had a good job that sometimes required me to travel for a bit. It paid well. Sarah worked part-time, and things between us were mostly good. Sure, we had our spats like any couple, but nothing major. About a year ago, Tom lost his job, again. He was crashing at my parents' place at the time. He's never been great at holding down a job. My parents asked if he could stay with us for a bit, just until he got back on track. I wasn't thrilled about it. Tom and I were never super close. He's always taken more than he gave. But Sarah thought it was a good idea. She believed some support would help him. So, I agreed, reluctantly. Tom moved into our spare room. At first, it was all right. He claimed he was on the job hunt and even lent a hand around the house. But things began to shift. I'd come home to find Tom and Sarah laughing and watching movies together. I started to feel like the odd one out in my own home. I tried to brush it off as jealousy or exhaustion from work. Then my work trip started ramping up, lasting 2 weeks at a time. It was a big project with the potential for a promotion and a nice pay bump. When I was home, Sarah seemed distant. She was glued to her phone, claiming to be texting friends. And Tom? He was still camped out at our place, supposedly job hunting, though I didn't see much effort. I started getting this nagging feeling, and it wasn't good. Once, I returned from a trip earlier than expected, deliberately not telling Sarah, hoping to surprise her. I got home to find both cars in the driveway. The house was quiet, and when I went inside, I found them simply making coffee in the kitchen. But their reaction when I walked in, the way they exchanged looks, it just didn't sit right with me. I asked Tom about his job prospects, and he mumbled something vague. Sarah quickly changed the topic, asking about my trip. I didn't voice my suspicions. I convinced myself it was all in my head. But before my next trip, I decided to install a couple of small security cameras inside the house, just to see what was really going on. Sarah was out shopping when I did it, and I didn't dare tell her, knowing she'd want to know why. Tom wasn't around either. I hid the cameras well, one in the living room and another in the kitchen, and set them to record to a cloud server I could check from my phone. On my next trip, I held off on checking the footage, trying to focus on work. But by the 4th day, I couldn't resist. I logged in to check the living room camera. What I saw hit me like a ton of bricks. Tom and Sarah were on the couch, kissing passionately. Then they started taking off their clothes. I couldn't watch anymore. I turned it off, feeling sick to my stomach. My brother and my wife, in my house. I barely remember the rest of that day. I was numb, just staring at the hotel room wall. The next day I checked again, and it was more of the same, cuddling, holding hands, Tom wearing my bathrobe, cooking in my kitchen. I even saw them in my bedroom. They were living like a couple in my place. I saved those videos as evidence, a lot of them. And I didn't say a word. I didn't call or text. I just finished my work trip, the longest 2 weeks of my life. Each day, I felt this intense mix of anger and a strange calmness. I knew I had to confront them. When I got back, I went straight to the house, unannounced. It was a weekday morning, so I figured they'd be there, and they were. Laughing in the kitchen, Sarah on Tom's lap, they froze when they saw me. Sarah went pale, Tom looked from angry to scared. He had the nerve to ask, "What are you doing here?" "In my own house," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Sarah started crying, giving me the classic line, "It's not what you think." "Oh, I think it is," I shot back. "You've been having a grand old time while I've been away." Tom got up, trying to act tough. "So what if we have?" he said. "She doesn't love you anymore." "She loves me." I turned to Sarah, who was just sobbing. "Is that true, Sarah?" I asked if something was wrong, and she just nodded while staring at the floor. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "So," I shot back, "oh really? How exactly were you planning to break the news to me? Or were you just planning to keep crashing at my place with my brother while I foot the bill for everything?" Neither of them said a word. That's when I dropped the bomb about the cameras. I told them I had footage. They freaked out, and Tom started yelling, calling me a creep for recording them. Meanwhile, Sarah was just bawling her eyes out. I made it clear I wanted them out of my house. Now. Tom lost it and lunged at me. He swung a punch, typical Tom with his short fuse, but I dodged it. I wasn't looking to brawl, I just wanted them gone. He took another shot and ended up tripping over a chair, whining about his arm being broken. It was classic Tom drama. Sarah rushed to his side, ignoring me completely. "Get out," I said again, calm but firm. They made their way to the bedroom, my bedroom, and started packing in a frenzy. Took them about an hour while I just sat there, listening to Sarah sob and Tom mumble threats under his breath. When they were finally done, Sarah stopped and said, "I don't know what to say." I replied, "There's nothing to say. Just go." So they left, driving off in Tom's beat-up car. The moment they were gone, I locked the door and wandered through my house, feeling like it was tainted by everything that went down. The next day, as expected, my parents called, obviously having heard Tom and Sarah's sob story. Before I could say a word, my mom was already shouting, asking how I could toss my own brother and his girlfriend out. I tried explaining the whole mess, but then my dad got on the line. He was calmer, but his words stung just the same. He actually said Tom and Sarah were in love, like it justified everything. He even implied I should support them financially because I had a decent job and a big house. I was flabbergasted. Support them? Support the two people who stabbed me in the back? My dad kept insisting that it was the right thing to do, which blew my mind. I couldn't believe they were defending my brother and Sarah after what they'd done. The argument dragged on and on. They called me selfish and cold-hearted. All they cared about was Tom and his shiny new relationship. In the end, I decided enough was enough and told them I was filing for divorce. Mom started crying, and Dad had the nerve to suggest that maybe I was partly to blame for working too much. I hung up. I hired a lawyer that day. The next few weeks were a blur with all the legal stuff and the anger coursing through me. I changed the locks on the house and kicked off the divorce process. Meanwhile, Tom and Sarah were shacking up with my folks. My parents wouldn't let up, badgering me to fork over money to support them. They even suggested giving Sarah the house or a hefty chunk of cash since Tom couldn't support her. Fast forward 3 months, the divorce is well underway. We had a mediation session where Sarah, looking absolutely wrecked, agreed to a straightforward split of our stuff. Tom was lurking outside, trying to act all tough. My parents were there too, trying to sway my lawyer, but I just ignored them. My lawyer made sure the house stayed mine. Sarah had no claim on it since I owned it before we got hitched. Then last week, out of nowhere, my lawyer called with a bombshell: Sarah's pregnant. Turns out she was already a few months along when I kicked her out. The timeline's iffy, so there's a chance the baby could be mine. My parents flipped, they were over the moon and immediately insisted this changed everything. They said it was a sign we needed to patch things up for the baby's sake. They even floated the bizarre idea of Tom being a great uncle dad. They started pushing hard for a reunion and wanted Sarah and Tom back in my house. I was spinning. A baby changes everything, sure, but not like this. Not with Sarah, and definitely not with Tom and my parents involved in this twisted scenario. My lawyer, of course, advised a paternity test, and I agreed. Sarah agreed too, insisting the baby's mine. Meanwhile, my parents are making my life a nightmare, calling my job, contacting my friends, telling everyone I'm abandoning my pregnant wife and baby. They're painting me as the bad guy, demanding I provide for their so-called new family unit, meaning Sarah, the baby, and Tom. It's been a total mind bend, and I'm just trying to figure out my next move. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real-life stories happening around you. Alright, so here's the scoop: I'm dealing with a lot right now. Basically, there's a whole messy situation with Tom and Sarah. If I don't go along with what they want, they're threatening to make everyone think I'm some kind of villain. Tom's been sending me these nasty texts saying stuff like, "You're gonna pay for this." And then there's the baby. It deserves a stable home, and I'm not getting back together with Sarah, that's not an option. The divorce is still happening, but I'm stuck on what to do about everything: my parents, Tom, and the potential baby. My folks think I should just forgive and forget, open my wallet, and let Tom play dad while I foot the bill. But honestly, I want to cut ties as much as possible, even if it's going to cause a major fallout. I'm feeling cornered and furious. How do I deal with my parents and this financial mess, especially if the baby turns out to be mine? Here's an update for everyone. It's been around 2 months since my last post. First off, thanks so much for all the comments and support. It helped talking to people who went through similar stuff or just understood. Many asked about the confrontation and my parents' behavior, so I'll clarify. No, Tom didn't break his arm in the incident, just a bruise. He went to the doctor, probably encouraged by my parents to get sympathy or something. It turned out to be just a sprain, but he wore a sling for dramatics. As for Sarah, she didn't really defend herself much, mostly just cried and apologized. When Tom got aggressive, she did shout, "Tom, no," but didn't physically stop him. Afterward, she was all about making sure he was okay, showing where her loyalty was. My parents really ramped up their campaign against me, even contacted my boss. He knows me well, so he told them to back off. They also emailed my aunt and uncle to paint me as the bad guy. Thankfully, my aunt called and supported me after hearing my side. A ton of people advised getting a good lawyer, so I did. He's super no-nonsense and helped me push for a real paternity test. After reading all your comments and talking to my lawyer, I felt stronger. The demands from my parents were ridiculous, and their logic about supporting Tom was bonkers. Tom and Sarah made their choices, and I'm not their ATM. The main focus for me was the baby. If it's mine, I want to be involved but not let them use the baby against me. The talk about parental alienation freaked me out, so I knew I had to act. My lawyer said to document everything, which I started to do. I decided to 1. Confirm paternity, 2. If it's my kid, fight for custody, 3. Cut off my parents and Tom financially and emotionally, and 4. Finalize the divorce fast. So, we scheduled the paternity test. It was super tense. Sarah was there, and Tom was pacing outside like a caged animal. My parents showed up too, trying to talk to me, but I ignored them. My lawyer had warned me not to engage. Sarah seemed stressed and quietly told me, "It's yours, I know it is." I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, my lawyer called with the results. Yep, I'm the dad. A wave of mixed emotions hit, responsibility, mostly. This is real now. My lawyer got on the paperwork for custody right away. We notified Sarah's lawyer that we intended to fight for full custody after the baby's born. We laid out all our reasons: Sarah's cheating, her shaky living situation with my parents, depending on unemployed Tom, his aggressive behavior, and my parents' harassment. We made it clear this wasn't a stable environment. On the flip side, I've got a solid job, a stable home, and a supportive network. Cutting ties was next. My parents flipped when they heard about our custody plans. My dad had the nerve to say, "How dare you take her baby?" I shot back, "It's my baby too, and I won't let it grow up in your chaos. We're filing when the baby arrives." My mom lost it, calling me a monster and saying I'd regret it, insisting Tom would be the dad. I told them that Tom wouldn't have any legal rights, and if they carried on, they wouldn't be in the kid's life either. I also informed them I wouldn't take their calls anymore, limiting communication strictly to essential family matters. So here's the scoop: if there are any health issues with relatives that don't involve me directly, they should go through my aunt. Anything to do with the baby or upcoming legal stuff, Sarah's lawyer can talk to mine. I told them I was blocking their numbers and did just that. I also sent Tom a cease and desist through my lawyer, warning him that if he kept up the threats or harassment, I'd report him to the cops and use it in the custody case. Tom, being Tom, left me an angry voicemail, calling from a friend's phone, swearing up a storm, and saying I'd pay for this in court. My lawyer kept the voicemail as proof of his questionable character. I changed my phone number, and only a few trusted people have it now. I even told my bank what's up in case my parents or Tom tried anything shady, and I moved my main accounts to a new bank. I made it crystal clear to my whole family, through my aunt, that I'm not in touch with my parents or Tom, and I gave them a brief rundown of why. Most were shocked but got it, and frankly, I couldn't care less anymore. Sarah, through her lawyer, is fighting for primary custody. She's saying she'll get her own place and a job and that Tom's being supportive. Big surprise there. She even threw in that I was never home, which is why she turned to Tom. Her lawyer's trying to make me look like an absent husband who's now trying to be an over-the-top controlling dad. The court's got us going to mediation since the baby's not born yet. They checked out the evidence, like Tom's threats and my parents' harassment, and slapped a temporary restraining order on Tom to keep him away from me. They also gave my parents a warning about not interfering, which they'll revisit once the baby's born and a permanent plan is set. My parents are losing it. My aunt said they're beside themselves, trying to get the rest of the family to pressure me. But my aunt's been great, telling them to back off. Sarah's stressed, with her lawyer pushing her to seem stable, so she's supposedly on the hunt for a job and an apartment. I bet Tom's not helping and probably making things worse, all angry about the restraining order since he can't bother me anymore. The divorce is messy, expensive, and draining. The last time I spoke directly to Sarah was through a brief call her lawyer set up. She was crying and begged me not to take the baby. I told her it's all about what's best for our child, not about what she has left, and that means staying away from Tom and my parents' toxic games. We parted ways on that call, and I have to stay strong and not let her emotions sway me. The house is quiet now, and I'm getting as ready as I can for the baby while gearing up for a tough legal battle. I know they'll try every trick in the book, but I'm prepared. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I'm not going to let them walk all over me or use my kid as leverage anymore. Update time. It's been about 2.5 months since my last update, and a lot has happened. Baby Daniel was born around 10 months ago. As planned, the minute he was born and we got his birth legally registered, my lawyer filed for full legal and primary physical custody. The legal drama that followed was intense, maybe even worse than I expected. The divorce wrapped up about a year ago. It was straightforward enough since we didn't have a ton of joint assets and I owned the house before we got married. Sarah's attempt to get spousal support didn't go anywhere, especially with the video evidence of her affair, probably pushed by Tom and my parents. The custody battle for Daniel was a nightmare. Sarah's lawyer argued that since Daniel's a newborn and Sarah plans to breastfeed, she should have primary custody at least for the first few years. They painted me as a workaholic and emotionally unavailable, trying to say I'd make a lousy single parent and that separating a newborn from his mom would be bad. They even dredged up my work-related travel history and tried to say I was being vindictive. My lawyer was awesome, though, and reminded them that while breastfeeding matters, the main concern is Daniel's safety, stability, and long-term well-being. We presented all the evidence we had, videos of the affair, Tom's threats, his courtroom outburst that got him a contempt charge, the voicemail, my parents' harassment, and their attempts to undermine my role as a dad. A child psychologist even testified about how harmful it could be for Daniel to grow up in such an unstable environment with people like Tom and my parents around. The psychologist also explained how a strong bond can form with a dad providing primary care, and how breastfeeding can be managed through visits and expressed milk if Sarah is cooperative and stable. Court was a long, draining process. Sarah would often break down in tears, while Tom sulked in the gallery until his contempt charge limited his presence there. My parents were there every day, glaring at me. They tried to talk to me in the hallways, but my lawyer always stepped in. The judge took Sarah's arguments seriously but was even more concerned about the overwhelming evidence of instability and potential harm. The judge was initially hesitant to completely separate a newborn from his mother if she'd be breastfeeding. So they decided on a strict temporary plan for the first 3 months. Sarah would have primary care of Daniel only if she met some seriously tough conditions. So, here's the deal, there were some pretty strict rules set up. First off, Sarah had to find a stable place to live on her own, away from Tom and my parents, and she only had 2 weeks to make it happen. A social worker had to give the thumbs up on her new digs. Then, Tom was banned from having any contact with our kids, Daniel and Sarah, and a restraining order was slapped on him. My parents couldn't see Daniel at all, and their time with Sarah was supposed to be super limited, definitely not involving Daniel or undermining me. Sarah also had to hit up parenting classes and therapy sessions and be chill with home visits from a social worker. As for me, I got tons of visitation rights, even overnights as Daniel got older, to make sure we bonded. I also got a say in all the medical decisions and sorted out child support. This was all about giving Sarah a shot to prove she could create a stable home. Sarah did manage to score a tiny apartment, but honestly, it didn't take long to see things weren't going to work out. The social worker noticed my parents were hanging out at her place a lot, despite being told not to. And there was this one time when Tom was spotted lurking near her apartment, which was a big no-no. Plus, Sarah skipped therapy sessions and really struggled to keep it all together, with Tom and my parents still pulling the strings and telling her the court's rules were unfair. My lawyer jumped in for an emergency review, and after checking out the reports and Tom's antics, the judge decided Sarah couldn't provide the safe, stable life Daniel needed, even with all the court support. So, the temporary setup was canned, and I got full legal and physical custody of Daniel. The judge pointed out that while it's great for a newborn to bond with their mom, it can't put the kid at risk. Now, Sarah can only see Daniel with a professional supervisor on her dime. This was a big win for my lawyer to keep Daniel safe and stop Sarah from being manipulated by Tom and my parents during visits. At first, she saw him twice a week for a few hours and could breastfeed if she wanted. She had to stick to strict rules, no Tom, no parents. If she slipped up, visitation would be out the window. Tom's restraining order got upgraded too, so he can't come near me, my house, my work, or Daniel's daycare, thanks to his past threats and court outbursts. As for my folks, they're completely cut off. After the custody ruling, they tried sending messages through my aunt, claiming I'd torn the family apart and took their grandchild after setting Sarah up to fail. My aunt told them I wasn't having it. They even made a surprise visit to my house, but thanks to my new security cameras and system, I called the cops and got them a trespass warning. They haven't pulled any stunts since, though my aunt says they're bitter, blame me for everything, and tell anyone who'll listen. We're not on speaking terms, and while that's kind of freeing, it does feel empty sometimes. Life with Daniel, though, is the bright side. Being a single dad is no joke, and it's way tougher than I thought, but he's a joy, healthy, happy, and my little buddy. I switch up my work schedule, working from home 3 days and having an awesome nanny for when I'm at the office. My aunt, who's like a grandma to Daniel, is a huge help, too. Sarah's kept up with her supervised visits. Reports say she's usually quiet and sad, playing with Daniel and crying when it's time to go. She tried breastfeeding at first, but stopped after a bit, probably because it was tough to do under supervision. Word is she's got a part-time job at a supermarket and has a roommate. After losing custody, her thing with Tom blew up when he realized there'd be no benefits from having the baby. They had a massive fight, and Tom got the boot from my parents after getting aggressive when they didn't give him more money. Last I heard, he's couch surfing and still jobless. He tries to trash talk me online, but my lawyer's been handling that. Therapy's been a go-to for sorting out my feelings of anger and betrayal, and it helps some. These days, it's all about Daniel. My life's changed so much, I don't date or have much of a social life, but I've got my son, and that's all that matters. Thanks to everyone who read my story and offered advice back then, it really helped when things were rough. The saga might not be over yet, Sarah might try to tweak the custody agreement down the line, but we'll cross that bridge when it comes. Take care.